here. MGT 2123. Just a few announcements really quick. Welcome back to week 3. Please continue to submit fabulous discussion boards. I'm really enjoying reading your discussion boards, guys. You're really doing a fantastic job. Please pay attention to due dates so that you get the maximum amount of points possible. Please remember that it's 10% off per day late. But if you have some type of an emergency go on, please get a hold of me and I can kind of work with you in that area on the points off. We've had a few people have health issues themselves or in the family, so know that we're here and that we will work with you. Miss Haley, get that down. Wonderful. So we have less than 2 weeks left in the course, and we have the final project coming up next week. So I wanted to devote a little bit of time to that. The last thing that I want you to do is to get to the end of the course, get to the final project, and feel completely lost about what I'm wanting or trying to picture what needs to be turned in. So I like to go over that during the live lecture, just in case you guys have questions that we can clarify for everyone all at one time. So let's get on to that. Final project. If any of you have looked at this yet, it's listed under the week 4 area. You'll notice that there are 2 parts. So first let's go over final project part 1. For your final project, you will tell me who you are as a leader using all of the resources from the book and the knowledge gained from this course, along with your personal experiences. So please include in that the PowerPoints that we've watched, the videos that have been under each week. So I want you to kind of bring it all together. This paper must be at least 500 words, 1 paragraph per area, and contain correct grammar, punctuation, and spelling. So please do spell check before turning it in. And also, please cite your references. Samantha, yes, exactly. So whenever I was going over this project and thought, well, let me see, we have 8 topics, and I don't think there's really any way you could get 8 topics in 500 words. So that's a pretty low minimum. It would be very hard to do that. So yes, it'll be longer than 500. And a paragraph on each thing would be wonderful. So your traits as a leader, and we went over so many different ones. Some of them you naturally have, some of them you don't. Oh, gotcha. That's right, Samantha. I'm sorry. So number 2 are your motives as a leader, and we've talked about some of those in our discussion boards as well as our assignments. Your behaviors, your attitude, your styles. Remember, you might identify with more than one style, not just a single element. A little bit about your creativity, your innovation, and your ethics. Now, please remember as you do this, you don't have to have been a leader to complete this assignment. I want you to picture in your mind what you think you would be like, what you have identified with as we've gone through this course, as you've gone through your assignment. You'll notice at the very bottom, let's see if I can get my pointer to come up. I've noticed that on the recording you can't see my pointer. Not real happy about that. There we go. So when I put this out there, do you guys see a little finger that's pointing to the right? Do you see a hand on the screen? No? Oh no! So I go to all this bother to pick out the right pointer, and I can see it, but nobody else can. Well, I think I'll just put that pointer up then. So just follow along with me. Please subtitle each section so that the topic is easily identified and follow the order that is listed above. So this makes it easiest to follow. So you'll the subtitle traits, and then your paragraph about your traits as a leader, the subtitle motives, your paragraph about your motives. So you'll go along like that. It'll be easier to follow along. I won't have to even guess what you're talking about. It'll be easier to grade that way as well. So this is your final project, part 1. It's going to be as many pages long as it needs to be. The main thing I want you to focus on are the 8 different areas and therefore 8 different paragraphs. Okay? So are there any questions specifically on this part 1 while we're on that? Most of this information is on our course page, but I've actually added a little more for our live lecture. So if you get a few days down the road and you don't remember something, you can always come back to the recording of the live lecture, either through Blackboard or through YouTube, and go back through this. That might help you out a little bit. Okay? So no questions on part 1. Great. Oh, and there's Casey. All right, get Casey down. All right, so let's move on then to part 2, where you get to be a little creative. Uh-oh, there might be questions. I see talking bubbles coming up. You do. You can see the hand right here. Is it moving? The pointer's there. Is it moving around, guys? It's not moving, so it's just sitting there. Gosh, well, baby steps. I wonder if I hit it several times, maybe it'll make it move. There we go. It's moving. Oh, small joys. I'm so happy. So when I wanted to point to that area, you guys are great. I'm so glad we accomplished that. Okay. Okay, final project part 1. Next is the final project part 2. And I'm going to put my pointer right there. I'm going to click on it. I bet you can see it now. I'm so happy. Okay, part 2. This is going to go along with part 1. So you're going to create a flyer or a PowerPoint. You can make this in Word if you wanted to. You could use Google Docs. You could use, I believe it's Google Slides is the version of PowerPoint that is in your email. If you've ever used that before, it's there. So you're going to make a flyer. Also, some people have used, I like to use Microsoft Publisher to create flyers. It's great if you're familiar with it. If not, don't try to jump into using it. One thing I like about creating flyers in Publisher and in PowerPoint is that it's very easy to move around your text boxes or your pictures that you've used. So I think it's a lot more user-friendly. So you're going to create this flyer or PowerPoint presentation outlining your leadership skills and abilities. Be creative, use color, use clip art, make it eye-catching. I want you to think of it as an advertisement for yourself. We're not really talking about a resume here. That would be your job experience, your education. We want to focus mainly on your leadership skills or the things that you have identified in this class. So think of it as an advertisement for yourself. Include your contact information, because if you were giving this to someone or hanging it up on the wall, they would need to know how to get in touch with you. I saw on the internet several different pictures of people that created billboards with their picture and their skills that say, hire me. So this is a smaller version of that. Kind of like LinkedIn with the paper, exactly. Some of the information that you cover in the paper will also be on the flyer. You got it. You can also add a picture of yourself if you'd like, since this is an advertisement, it's up to you. That's not something I would recommend on a resume, but since this is kind of a fun project, it would be okay. What leadership skills do you have to offer? You want to talk about these. Could you make an actual build? That would be fantastic, Erin. Just tell me where it's located. Maybe by 41st and Sheridan would be easier so I could see it. So what leadership skills do you have to offer, and a little bit about what makes you unique. So you have the basic idea here. I want you to advertise yourself. I want you to have fun with it. Sometimes it's hard for us to see our own positive or leadership qualities. And if you're really unsure on this paper and also on the flyer, I think it would be a really great idea to ask one of your friends or ask one of your coworkers, because we're sort of programmed from very early on to not brag about ourselves. That's considered rude. Don't brag. You know that in kindergarten class and in first grade, the teachers are really big on instilling that. So ask a friend, you know, what are my positive qualities? What in me do you see that would make me a good leader? So, because sometimes we need that feedback. Yes, Brianne, that's a very good idea. Online surveys or quizzes may help you see your qualities as well. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. In fact, I wish I had one on the top of my head that I could tell you to go to. Maybe I'll research one and put it up on our course page, because sometimes answering those questions can help you sort of muddle through that. Yes. Okay. On your IQ, yes, we got to make sure it's still the same, right? Taking the IQ test. So does anybody else have questions on the final project for part 2? Does that sound pretty self-explanatory? On our course page, there was very little information, so I wanted to sort of fill in the gaps. Pretty clear. Okay. Okay, great. Good. Good. Because I know some of you may already be working on this, or you plan to start working on it pretty soon, and I want you to be ready to go. Okay, great. Oh, no, it doesn't have to have all of the 8 subtitles from our paper. No, you're kind of picking out the key ones, the highlights on them. That's a good question. Yeah, so you're going to pick out sort of the main things that highlight you. Yes, that would be great if you send a rough draft. I would be fine with that. Just be sure and send it to my email. Yes. How many would be a minimum on your leadership qualities, Haley? Is that what you mean? I would have at least, I'm going to say 4. Try to get me at least 4. And from all the different topics we covered in the book, I think that will be fairly easy. Yeah. And if you have more, that's fine too. That's great. Okay, so here's a really good example. I don't want you to think that you have to have one that looks like this, but here's an example of a flyer, Reggie Rivers, and it has his contact information at the top. It has his pictures, River Enterprises. And really, this is more of an advertisement for the services that he offers. But I really couldn't find one that was specifically for what we want to do for our class. Next time I teach this class, I'll have maybe one of your examples that I could use. So, but he looks like a motivational speaker. So that would be actually a good leadership quality. And it tells a little bit about what he does as a motivational speaker. He's also a master of ceremonies and an auctioneer. And it tells a little bit about each one. So I want you to sort of picture that with your leadership qualities instead of his motivational speaker, master of ceremonies, auctioneer area. So if you had, say, 4 qualities and then a little explanation under each one, that would be fantastic. And fill it in with some pictures and some color and make it look great. Okay? Does that help out a little bit too? I'm a big visual person, so I really like to be able to see examples. Instead of just trying to work it out in my brain, it helps me if I have an actual picture. Can you use your business as a flyer? You could if you're highlighting your leadership skills in your business. Yeah, I can see that tying in on them. Yeah, in your contact information. Very good. Okay, so remember, you've got part 1 and you've got part 2. Yes, be sure and put your contact information, Casey, because it's kind of like an advertisement for you. You can just put your name, phone number, your email, of course the same one that we would use here at the college. So, all right, we're not going to post these anywhere. It's just going to be for class. I promise not to sell your information. Okay, so that is it. That's going to be our final project, which we'll be doing next week. And some of you have noticed that there's no quiz for next week, so you don't have to worry about that. Getting that in by the last Saturday. And we do have 2 discussion boards and our final project. Those are the main 3 things to focus on next week. As well as if you have any assignments that need to be turned in, please be sure and get those in right away so that I can at least get you some points for them. Even if it's late, it's okay. Go ahead and turn it in. All right? So we have just a few things to cover tonight. I chose Chapter 6, Leadership Ethics and Social Responsibility. And we're really mainly just going to focus on the idea of ethics. What is it, 821? All right, we're doing good. What are ethics? And, you know, it's really surprising when you start doing searches for that term for ethics, how many different ideas you get of what people think ethics are and the different definitions that come from the dictionaries and the online sources. So I sort of chose this one. In the simplest terms, the word ethics refers to the application of moral principles in a way that we conduct our individual or group behavior. So ethics, morals could be used sort of in the same area. And the way that we conduct our individual or group behavior. So sometimes, you know, we want to stay consistent with our ethics, not have different varieties for different parts of our life. Where do we get our ethics from? Mainly society. And when we think of society, I want you to think also of your parents, of your family, of your friends. Society plays a big role in ethics, morals, and values. So you'll notice we've used those 3 different terms there. Where were you born? What part of the world were you born in? What part of the country? Because all of these things may make a difference in your personal list of ethics and what you consider important. What are your family values? What did your mother or father or grandmother or grandfather instill in you? And also, what are your friends' morals? And so I tried to use some of the different terms again there for each statement. Ethics are basically the study of moral obligations, the study of separating right from wrong. And you know, I wish it was always night and day or right and wrong, but it's not. Oftentimes we have a middle ground as well. We have that gray area. Morals are an individual determination of what is right and wrong, influenced by a person's values. So again, we have right and wrong. Values are connected to ethics because ethics become the vehicle for converting ethics into action. So you can see how each of these are all really tied together. Competing concepts of the good. Yes, that's good, Erin, actually. Yes. Good versus bad, good versus evil, however we'd like to term that there. Okay, 4 ethical leadership behaviors that are talked about in the book. And, you know, if you, again, look on the internet, you will see huge lists of leadership behaviors that are considered ethical. And this really just pares it down to, I'd say, the main 4. So be honest and trustworthy, have integrity in dealing with others, pay attention to all stakeholders, build community, and respect the individual. We're going to go over each one of these here in just a minute. Here's my pointer. I got it working. Okay, ethics is at the center of leadership because the goal of a rational leader, key term there, is to merge the interests of all parties so that everyone benefits and the organization prospers. So if we look at number one, the first ethical leadership behavior, be honest and trustworthy, have integrity in dealing with others. You see, according to survey reports from the Ethics Resource Center, 19% of leaders say they have lied to employees. 16% have conflicts of interest. In other words, maybe they are making money from another business that is making, supplying your profit or nonprofit business. 12% are lying to stakeholders, so anyone that would be affected by that. And 11% have health and safety violation. Those numbers are all pretty large, actually. The main idea is you do want to practice what you preach, practice cultural diversity, which is part of having integrity and dealing with others. And ethical problems have a tendency to erode trust at all points. And we're going to be talking about this here in just a minute. The idea of problems and ethics causing problems in business. So our next one was pay attention to all stakeholders. Well, we really have to sort of define that here in just a minute. It's no longer the CEO's prime responsibility to maximize shareholder wealth. That used to be the number one thing. And it conflicts with paying attention to all stakeholders. Authentic business leaders have a deep commitment to their personal growth as well as the growth of stakeholders and shareholders. So who are the stakeholders? Who are these people? Business stakeholders. Can you still see my pointer? Business stakeholders may include, and so this may vary business to business depending on if you're for-profit or non-profit. You have your group of investors. You have maybe state government, local government, federal government involved. You have your customers, the community around you, your employees, and your employees' family, because the decisions that you're making for your employees will have an effect on their family as well. And then your partners in the business. So you can see it's not just the employees of a business. It's not just the customers of a business. It's this whole gamut that's considered the business stakeholders. Ethical leadership behaviors. Number 3 was building community. So people work toward the same goal to help build a community within a business. Community can be built on an international scale. It may be including suppliers or people overseas. It may be, the example here is UN Global Impact Initiative, Human Rights, Labor, and Environment. Make explicit statements about human rights in company policies, websites, internet. So we want it to be out there. We want it to be easily accessible and easily read. So it's not just something we think about. It's not just something we talk about. Ethics are something that we do want to have in writing. What do we expect? And the last is respecting the individual. Everyone has inner worth. We're expected to treat everyone with kindness and respect. The public demonstration, what can we do to make your job easier? So we're not just thinking about making the millions of dollars, but we also want to think about our employees as individuals as well. Basically, there's no right way to do a wrong thing, right? some of the guidelines for evaluating the ethics of a decision. Now, this is something that you don't necessarily go through on paper. You may not even really be thinking about each one in your head, but it's more of a subconscious decision. Ethical screen guidelines to help leaders determine if a given act is ethical or unethical. First, we might say, is it right? Are we making the right decision? Get my pointer. Is it right? Is it fair? Is anyone getting hurt or harmed in the process? There may not be people here, it could be the environment as well. Would you be comfortable if the details of your decision or actions were made public in the media or through email? Is this something you could be proud of? Is this something you could own? What would you tell your child, sibling, or young relative to do? So is this a piece of advice you would give to someone else, basically? And number 6, I like this. How does it smell? Does it smell okay? Doesn't smell right? Yeah. Leaders regularly face the necessity of running a contemplated decision through an ethics test. So we sit down, we think about it. We think about some of these questions, maybe not all of them, and then we make the decision. So here are some examples of unethical leadership behaviors. They say that about 95% of your business leaders are actually ethical, and that the 5% of the bad apples, which are mostly senior executives, I'm not sure how they found that out, get all the publicity. So yes, the things that are bad that happen in your company will probably make the headlines faster than the things that are good. And we see this all the time on the news daily. The impact of unethical leadership has been enormous. So before we talked about the idea of poor ethics having an effect on the business, it can cause bankruptcies if people are actively stealing. Enron is a wonderful example, guys. Yes. Bankruptcies, layoffs of thousands of workers. Again, we can include that one as well. Diminished trust in stock investments, and we can actually discourage talented young people to study business. Maybe they don't know that's a little too much of a shady area because we see all these bad things on the news. Well, it's not necessarily all bad. There's a lot of great things happening out there too. They're just not newsworthy, right? Is what it comes down to. Here's a few examples of unethical behaviors in business. Dumping pollutants into the water supply. Got a few oil tankers that have had accidents over the years. Forcing an injured worker not to report a workman's comp, or threatening them. Refusing to give an employee a final paycheck for hours worked after the employee leaves the company. Have you guys ever had that happen to you? Have you left a job before and for some reason they didn't want to give up that last check? Yes, it happens more often than you would think. I have had it happen before too. Yep, Aaron as well. So that's 3. That's pretty good. 4. Can't say I have, but I know people that it's happened to. Yes, exactly. Oh, Stephanie, you had to contact the police. Oh my gosh. You know, and in my case, the employer said that, you know, basically the check's in the mail, and it never arrived. Yeah. Had to go get it myself. Didn't want to. It can be ridiculous. So in some instances, you're trying to hold on to that for some reason. I had a landlord one time that kept my deposit when the house was spick and span when we left. But he was able to come up with some things that he sort of made up, and I wish I had taken pictures of the house before I left, but I didn't. So we wound up losing our deposit over that. They overnighted it. Oh, good. Oh, and still lost it. Oh, no, Autumn. Both of your jobs gave you 2 weeks of pay when you left. Wow, guys, you're doing okay then. That's pretty good. And what did Haley say? I had to involve corporate. Got a little extra 2 weeks. Well, good, good. Yeah, sometimes it pays off to complain. To say, hey, this isn't right. You're not treating me right. I could give you some bad, what am I trying to say in the news? Some bad publishing. Turn your name in. Okay, not paying an employee for all the hours worked again. Yes, this happens sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose. You're trying to skim a little money off. Using bait and switch or false advertising tactics to lure customers in or convince them to buy a product. So maybe advertising one product, and then when you get to the store, remarkably, they are all out of that product, but they have one that's a little more expensive, and they will try to talk you into it. Rolling back the odometer on a vehicle that's for sale. Yeah, this used to be pretty common. It's a little bit harder to do now, though, especially with the digital odometers. Refusing to honor a warranty claim on a defective product, and a lot of us have probably been there on that one as well. And another example, a dentist performs unnecessary procedures on the patient in order to receive an insurance payment. And what did Casey, going out of business from a movie, oh, what was that? From the movie Zohan. That's right. The going out of business sale. There's some businesses that just seem to perpetually have those. And also, there's a lot of businesses that are perpetually having a grand opening. So, you know, having the first part as well, trying to draw you back in. Quality means doing it right when no one is looking. I like this quote from Henry Ford. And I think you could see that if we could take the word quality and replace it with ethics, that it would still mean the same. Doing the right thing when no one is looking. Okay, here's a few examples. Since we talked about unethical behavior in businesses, here's unethical behaviors in individuals. Stealing money from the petty cash drawer at work. Lying on your resume in order to get a job. Stretching the truth a little bit. Cheating on a school paper by copying it off the internet. Ameni's gallery has been going on really for the past 10 years. Exactly. Taking $20 out of your friend's wallet when he is sleeping. I don't know where they even got that one. I don't know if anybody this happened to. Selling a car and lying about the vehicle's accident history. And here's the sketchy one down here. Lying to your spouse about how much money you spent. Would you consider that poor ethics? Lying to your spouse about how much money you spent when you went shopping. Well, I like that answer, Casey. Yep. And that, you know, it's actually something that's pretty common again. Pretty common. How much did those shoes cost exactly? They were on sale. I bought them at a going out of business sale, actually. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So we have to consider, on this statement, I think about with our children, with our family members, that when we're talking about ethics, it's not just education, it's not just learning out of a book, that ethics are actually something that even comes more from the heart. So being a good role model to your children, making those ethical decisions in front of them as opposed to being unethical. Don't lie in front of them. Don't try to steal something. Don't try to cheat your way out of something. And you're actually educating in heart. So the last slide of the evening, how to create an ethical organizational culture. We've talked about a few of these things already. but you want to provide strategic leadership, create a pleasant workforce, and one of the ways you can do this is by conducting an environmental audit. Environmental audits aren't necessarily just about the chemicals that are in the area. We're talking about how happy people are in their jobs themselves. Do they feel safe? Do they feel comfortable? Helping build a sustainable environment, engaging in philanthropy, maybe making donations, donating your time. Establishing written codes of ethical conduct, which I brought up earlier, would be something that you want to have on file for your business. Develop formal mechanisms for dealing with ethical problems, and sometimes we have to deal with these as they come up. You can try to plan for everything, as we talked in our past lecture about crisis in business and leading during a crisis. Sometimes you have to lead through an ethical crisis as well. Accepting whistleblowers, which means listening to what people have to say. It doesn't matter if you don't believe them. You need to wait and do your research and find out if it's true or not, because you don't want to shut them out. Provide training in ethics and social responsibility, which a lot of businesses do now, and place company interest over personal interest. So it sounds complicated, but so much of it is actually fairly common sense. All right, so we get down to our last slide. Any questions for the evening? Have you thought of maybe other things about the final project you're unsure of? I know you know what ethics means now, right? We've covered that. If you don't have any other questions, you guys can go ahead and go. I've got your names written down, so be sure and get your points in the grade book. I've had a few things come up in the grade book where I have put the points in, but they're not showing for certain people. So I want you guys be sure and let me know if you see an issue in the grade book. Maybe you've turned an assignment in and it's from week 1 or week 2, but those points aren't up there yet. Be sure and shoot me an email so I can double check and get your points put in there. Because I want to be ethical, okay? Great. You guys have a great night. Call me, email me if you have any questions. We're going to finish out our week 3, week 4, and we're done. So be sure and get your discussion board posts all 3 in by tonight at midnight. No, Amber, if you attend class, you don't have to turn in a summary. I just write down your name that you were here, and you get your points. Thank you. You guys have a good night as well. You're welcome. Anytime. Good night. Bye, Stephanie.